everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the YouTube Creators Hub podcast, where each and every week I chat with a YouTube creator or just creator in general, and I talk with them about their journey on YouTube with video marketing, with social media, content creation. And this week is no different. I'm joined by Andrew Southworth. Andrew, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you as well, my friend. Now, tell me, Andrew, your channel is like mine. It's just named with your first and last name. Tell us a little bit about what the channel is about and kind of the origin story of the channel itself.
Yeah, so my whole channel is about helping music artists and record labels get more people to hear their music. And it didn't start off like that. I think my first video was 2007 when YouTube was quite new. And I was just stupid, fun videos with friends. And eventually I started teaching guitar lessons and then screaming lessons because I'm a metal vocalist. And then that's how I got my first 5,000 subscribers, just teaching screaming on the internet, which is kind of stupid sounding now, but it was apparently doing well back then. And I transitioned to talking about music production, so like making music, recording music, and all the audio processing and stuff like that. And then in 2019, I decided that I wanted to actually take my music seriously and try to market it. And then I was just kind of documenting that journey on my YouTube channel because it was interesting to me. And this just dramatically took off compared to anything else I was doing. And so I just decided to go all in on that topic because it was super interesting to me too. I mean, it's still interesting now, but it was super new to me at the time. And so I just went 100% music marketing, music business. And that's what I've been doing for the past 3.5 years.
And you've been doing it full time for 3.5 years?
No. So when I started back then, so I have a master's in mechanical engineering. So to graduate in 2016, I've been working since, but a year and a half ago, I went down to half-time. And then because I was making like more online than I was from my engineering job with a master's degree. And so I was like, let me go down to part-time on that and do full-time YouTuber. And then I finally left 1 week ago today.
So 1 week ago today. That is awesome. Now, I'm so glad we're talking to you in this phase of the journey because I've been there. I was there. I had a full-time 9-to-5 job that paid pretty well. My wife was in school at the time. And so I do understand kind of the transitional phase and also the hesitancy of it. Just, is it the right thing? Should I do this? Should I not? What are people going to think? Is this even a real thing? All of these thoughts come into your head, right? So with that being the case, like, what were some of the final straws that were just like, okay, I'm going to do this. Like, I'm going to make the jump into full-time creator. What were those thoughts?
So it was a big part of it was just looking at where my net income was coming from every month. And I noticed that, I mean, I had gone part-time, so I was making half of what I was per biweekly paycheck or whatever. But I noticed that my career was making me less than like 10% of my monthly income. So that was one factor. Like, why am I doing this thing that's making me like 10% of my monthly income if it takes me like a third of my working hours during that? And one of the biggest things that prevented me from jumping was healthcare in the United States, right? Like, it's so expensive to be self-employed and pay for healthcare. And my wife is also on my healthcare. So that was a big, scary kind of barrier. But it was just several weeks or maybe even months of just being perpetually exhausted and just constantly feeling like I can't like do this. Like I'm burning out hardcore. And I finally just one day I had like a what do you call it? Like a mid-year review. And my boss starts talking about like, oh, like how I've done that quarter. And I'm just thinking like I've been the worst employee like for the past like 6 months because my head is on this and I feel bad for like how like I was still doing what I had to, but like I wasn't doing what you would like want to do if you were taking career seriously. And so all those things combined, just on that call, I was like, sorry, I can't do this anymore. I'm giving you the 2-week notice. And it was terrifying. Like, it was probably one of the more stressful things I've done. And after I said it to him, it was just the biggest relief being lifted off my shoulders. Like, not only from a sense of time, but also from a sense of like, he was actually very supportive. Like, he was stoked that it's like, oh, wow, I didn't realize this thing that you've been doing outside of this was becoming such a big factor in your life. And they were like, everyone that I worked with was just so like supportive. Like, this is awesome. Like, go do this. So, yeah, like I would do this too, you know? But yeah.
I think back to when I had the conversation with my wife and how important it was to have her support, the people around you, and how important that is, you know, knowing that this thing that you're wanting to do is not so mainstream. It's not oftentimes in the circles that we all walk in. We know maybe a handful of people who do social media or creators in general, but we don't know very many of them. I don't know about you. And so with that being the case, it's very nerve-wracking. Now, I want to back up a couple of months here in regards to, you know, you were doing your 9 to 5, whatever you want to call it, halftime. But before that, you were doing it full-time plus YouTube.
Yeah.
It's very hard to do that. But how did you do it and succeed at YouTube? How were you able to manage all of this? Because there's a lot of people listening to this right now that are not at the point where they can make that decision monetarily, something's going on with their family, or you even mentioned healthcare, which is a big deal that we don't talk about very much here on this podcast. What were some things that you did to make sure that you were able to manage your time and do your job as well as create good content and grow the channel?
Yeah, I think a big part of it was when I started working in my engineering career, I was in grad school full-time for 2 years. So I went straight out of college where I was working full-time at Starbucks and going to college full-time to working a mechanical engineering career full-time while also doing grad school full-time. So when I finished grad school, I felt like I had an additional like 30 hours a week of time to fill. And so I kind of just become used to being perpetually burnt out and having no social life. And, you know, I don't want to bum out anyone listening to this, like, oh, I have to like, I can't do anything fun. I can't have any friends. I'm going to be busy all the time. But that is kind of a sad truth of this, is that if you're working full time, like making a channel or any business successful, like it's going to take a lot of time. So there's going to be weeks where you're working 60, 70, 80 hours. And maybe you can be more efficient than I was, but I was pretty efficient, I feel. Like I found a filming style with my videos that reduced my editing time to basically less than the time it takes to film videos. Now, also the niche I'm in, not too much editing required. Like I film all my videos with OBS and I use a Stream Deck, which is like the little button thing where you switch channels and everything. So I perform all of my screen animations as I'm recording, as if it were a live stream. So then when I go to edit my video, instead of it being this 2-hour thing, it's like a 20-minute thing. So that was one optimization that I made to make sure that I could produce 2 videos a week for so long while working. Additionally, I use automations as much as I can. So for business things, I use Zapier extensively, because that instead of having to do all this manual stuff, like someone buys this, give them this, someone joins this and then this, I use email automations. I use Zapier. I use ClickUp super extensively. It's a task management tool. So my whole life is in my calendar and it's in ClickUp. Like every task I have to do, it's organized into a different list. And, you know, it takes time to do that stuff. But I found that the biggest problem that I had as I was busier and busier is I just couldn't keep things in my head and I would forget to do stuff all the time. So the more I could put things in the calendar, like this is what I'm doing then, and the more I could document and ClickUp, the easier my life would become and the more efficient I could figure out like where am I wasting time. And then also just looking at like out of everything I have to do, what are the things that are going to give me the most bang for my buck in terms of growth? You know?
Yeah, I remember I use an app called Notion. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of Notion. It's not exactly what ClickUp is, but you put in a lot of time initially to set everything up. And if you're not one of those people, and I am kind of one of these people who have to have everything just perfect, Notion can get very overwhelming. I found, because you can design it and you can even do a little back-end coding and make it work. But I've got a system now, Andrew, where, like you said, it's the one app for everything. I'm learning something new from a podcast. I got a little note section. I have to-dos. I got a to-do. I got a grocery list that my wife and I share. Everything. And I got a YouTube production schedule and I got a database of all my YouTube videos and the ones I'm working on. And I have an idea dump here. So it's nice to have that one little area where that is. And ClickUp is, I've kind of tinkered around with it and understand that. All right. So I want to talk about monetization, because your channel, as we're recording this, is sitting right at almost 60,000 subscribers. just under the 800 video mark, which, by the way, speaks to the grind that is YouTube, right? Like 800 videos seems crazy to people, but I've been on YouTube 12, almost 13 years now, and I've got almost 1,200 videos. So it's one of the things to where that's really not that much when you think about it, averaging 50, 60, 100 a year, whatever it may be, right? So we'll talk about monetization in a minute, because you made a very interesting comment to me off air before we went live about how you believe people could make money as creators that might differ from what people have in their mind. But explain to me what a day looks like. Like, I know, because I'm a full-time creator, not necessarily just on YouTube. I do voice acting and other things as well, and podcasting. But for you, what does your day look like when you get up from when you go to bed? What does your day look like?
Yeah, so I'm definitely a night owl. So today I slept till noon. And so I guess this will kind of counter to the hustle culture that gets thrown online. You have to wake up at 4 or 5 a.m., blah, blah, blah. You can't sleep. But I wake up at around noon, and I usually spend the first, 30 minutes, hour of a day checking email, replying to things. And by the way, I do want to wake up earlier in case anyone comments, like, don't do that, you're destroying your health. But I wake up, I reply to emails. I will, I call it putting out fires, like checking my Slack and just checking comments and just making sure like nothing's going horribly wrong in my life. And then I spend the next hour, so maybe like 1 to 2, I will focus on content, whether that day means filming some full-length videos or planning some full-length videos or getting my social media content scheduled. And then sometimes it's 2 hours, sometimes it's 1 hour, depending on the day. I spend the next hour, let's just call it 2 to 3, going over my either course students, so replying to any comments that they have in my community, or managing client ads. So I have an ad agency and I run ads for a lot of artists and labels. So I will go through and look through all of my different ad accounts and make sure that optimizing things that have to be done or fixing problems that come up. And then usually from about 4 p.m. to 9 p.m., sometimes 10 p.m., I'm in Zoom calls every other hour. So usually at 4, I'll have a call with like a business partner or something, usually a business partner or someone in my team. And then I'll have a break from 5 to 6, which that will either mean more content or more ads or more answering students or replying to comments. And then from 6 to 7, I'll have a call with a consulting client. So this is someone who just like books my calendar and pays me for an hour of my time. And then from 7 to 8 will be dinner with the wife. And then from 8 to 9 will be another consulting call. And then 9 to 10 will be hanging out with the wife. And then usually from 10 to 11 also hanging out with the wife. Some days there's more hanging out and chilling, and some days there's more calls back to back. But then from about 10 or 11 p.m. to 4 in the morning, it's just on my computer, like either making content, editing videos, writing blog posts, cutting up social media content, replying to emails, or thinking of crazy new business ideas that I could add.
Yes.
And that's the day in the life of Andrew.
Yeah. And that to many of you may sound insane what he's talking about as far as the hours and the amount of time he's putting in. Honestly, I didn't bat an eye because I've been there and I am there now. There are days where I have 2 young kids. I have an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old. My life could not be any busier on a personal standpoint, as well as a professional standpoint. But as a creator, there are times when they go to bed, and that's when I start a lot of days. Sometimes I'll start at 10:30. I want to spend time with my wife, and then I'll come in my office, which is right down the hallway from my bedroom, which it could be a pro or a con, right? I'm working
my
on
bedroom is the door across the hall. So
yeah. And so that's just the life of a creator, right? And I'll start that late and I'll work on a new podcast idea, or I'll work on a new video idea, or like you said, it may be brand new business thoughts or ideas that I have, because people who are motivated like this as creators, oftentimes their brain is never able to stop completely. And that oftentimes can be a damaging thing that you need to control. And a big part of my life, in the past few years has been health and wellness, because I was wore down. And as a creator, I had to figure out I needed to get better and more sleep. I needed to, get my steps in. I needed to get my heart rate up to a certain degree every single day. And these things are important to me because I want my kids to have a dad that's present and there and able to do the things that they're able to do. And I found that I'm able to produce better content because I'm feeling better and I'm more passionate about it. But what Andrew's saying is so true, right? Like it could be all over the place. So I'm glad that you shared all of that. Now you mentioned
there's one thing that I want to say quick is that, a big part of why I left the day job, in addition to everything I said, is like it's very tolling when you can't hang out with anyone, either your friends or your spouse or whatever. And so, I'm kind of in this transition period where I still have all this crap that I'm doing. And so the hope is that I just gained back about 20 hours a week, that I'll have 10 extra hours a week to spend on my business and then, or / channel, whatever. But then another 10 hours, the other 10 hours a week is like me time. So 10 hours a week of hanging out with the wife, relaxing, hanging out with friends. Like I went to a friend's party in his backyard a few days ago. And it was just like, I haven't hung out with any of these friends in like a year, And so it's being a creator can be a very lonely existence, partially because you're so busy. But the other part is that you usually don't know anyone else that's doing it.
That's exactly what I was mentioning at the top of the show. Now, I want to ask you, you mentioned consulting, you mentioned your course, and you have your YouTube channel and your business consult, things like that. Would you say the majority of this stuff stems from your YouTube channel? I mean, your YouTube channel is kind of the main cog in that wheel because, if someone were to ask me what I do, I would mention, I'm a YouTube creator. I also do business coaching. I do voice acting. I do podcast. Like I would mention a lot of these things, but the main cog in that wheel at the beginning of this whole thing was YouTube. That's what stemmed everything, right? So would you say that to be the case for you as well?
For sure. Yeah. YouTube is where I built my audience. And at this point I have an audience on every platform pretty much, and also mailing list and all that. But YouTube is my main platform. It's where I post most of my original content, and then everything else is kind of cut up from that main kind of long form content. And most of my sales come from that as well. I do also run ads to sell my various products as well, but most of my traffic and everything comes directly from that channel.
So let's talk about monetization for a minute. People can start doing the math in their head. You were an engineer. You're no longer an engineer because you're making it as much, if not more, than you were doing that. So, I mean, engineers make decent to really good money. So, with that being the case, first, I would like you to mention let's just start from the beginning. As far as ad revenue on a channel that has 60,000 subscribers, primarily educational based, just under 800 videos, what would you average in a month? Normal month with just AdSense on your channel?
AdSense, I think, is about $1,200. So it's I don't even care about that.
Right. AdSense is not the lump sum of where you make your money. So that's kind of where we're starting. And obviously people listening to this are hearing you say that and they're like, man, I'd love to make $1,200 to put back in the channel, right?
I remember my first dollar, and everyone here that's starting off I remember making a penny a day, and I remember making $1 a day, and making, being able to cash out once a month, whereas before you had to hit $100 threshold, and it might take you multiple months to hit that, and then being able to cash out every month and being able to hit all those thresholds. So when I say I don't even care about it, keep in mind that there was a point that I cared greatly about it, and it was the only income I had from YouTube.
I was dating my wife, and I was at her house eating supper with her family when I made my first dollar, had my first $1 day. Called my dad. He and I were just joyous talking about it. And then I remember my first $100 day, which was if someone would have told me that my YouTube backlog would have made me $100 in one day. $100 is a lot of money. I mean, it's you're not getting rich, but $100 is something to write home about, right? It's not going to change your life, but it's substantial. And I remember during COVID, because of the nature of my channel, I had days where I would make a lot of money, way more than even that. And so just having that ability as creators to make ad revenue and then do all the things that we're about to talk about that you're doing. All right. So you got the ad revenue. What's the next source of income?
The next I would say is course. That was the first monetization thing I added, was a course, because people were commenting and saying, where can I learn more? I would like to have a detailed guide in this. And I'm like, well, YouTube algorithm, blah, blah, blah. You know, I'm not going to make an hour-long slow tutorial on clicking every button in Facebook ads. And so people ask me for a course.
So you made the course, and then what happened? What was the thing that happened, you know, once you made the course? How'd that whole thing go?
So I initially launched this course in beta. So instead of doing a thing where I release a full price product and then like discount it randomly, I was like, this product is going to be $100, but I'm going to sell it, or 97. I do everything that ends in 7 because of some random marketing statistic I saw 5 years ago. But I was like, the first 10 people to buy it, it's going to be $37. And then I'm locking it down for a couple of weeks so I can get feedback and get beta test results from how people think about the course. And then I launched it again for $67 and let 20 more people buy it. And then I launched it again for like $87 and let 20 more people buy it. And then I opened it up for $97 and I let like 50 people buy it. And then eventually I just reopened it and let people buy it as much as they want. And it became pretty significant pretty fast. I mean, you could do the math, like even just those 10 initial sales is $370, and they happened like that day. So like I was like, hey, my course, it's in beta, $37, limited time only, and it was just $370. And I was like, oh, like this is a lot compared to like what my AdSense is. Like that's a significant percentage raise. And then when I launched it at 67, those like 10 or 20 sold out like within a couple days. Right, because and you can do the math on that again, you know,
right.
And so it just kind of became significant just by accident. Like I had no idea what I was doing. Right, people asked me for a course, I made a course, I was like, this pricing strategy makes sense. I hate when I buy something and it becomes cheaper later, so let me make the cheapest price to buy any of my courses now, and it's only going to get more expensive over time until it hits its max price.
Where are you creating the course at? What software are you using?
I was using Teachable then, but I was using a Facebook community or group, and I hated that. So I switched everything over to Mighty Networks at the end of 2021.
Okay, Mighty Networks is the back end of how you're doing your course?
Okay. Yeah, so I sell it on ThriveCart through a sales funnel, and then the courses and community are in Mighty Networks.
And so the way people get to it now, I assume it's wide open now. Whoever wants to buy it, whenever they want to buy it, can, which is smart, right? Is they'll watch one of your YouTube videos. They're like, oh, this guy's smart. This tutorial really helped me. I want more from him. They'll go to the description of your video. They'll see the link. They'll click the link, go to where the sales funnel starts. It'll tell them more about the course. You got reviews, things like that there. And then they can buy it from that kind of lead page. Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. And how many courses a month do you think you sell now?
I would say so in terms of dollars, I know it ranges between 10 and 15K a month. Yeah. So whatever that divided by 100 or so. Right. I mean, it kind of depends because I have other products I sell. But in that sales funnel for that one course, like eventually I created a second course. And the beautiful thing with a funnel software is after they buy that first product, you can say, hey, here's a second course that I have. And by the way, because you just bought that product, it's $20 off. If you go to buy this later, you're going to pay full 97, but if you buy it now, it's only 77 extra. So you're kind of using scarcity and discounts and the fact that you know they just bought this thing, so this thing's a really good effect, to try and like double your ROI or your average cart value for that order. So in terms of course sales, it's whatever, like
sure.
I pull out a calculator real quick.
Sure. So we're talking it could be anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000 a month on just course sales, correct?
Yeah. So that would be between 100 and 150 course sales a month.
How much time initially? So two-part question here for you. How much time initially did you put in the course, and what was that process like? And then part B, how much upkeep and updating do you have to do to the course?
So the original time commitment, I didn't track, but I've estimated it to be somewhere between like 40 and 60 hours of total work between like building the sales funnels and picking software to use and setting up a community, then filming the videos and planning it. The upkeep, I would say I refresh at least some videos every couple months, but usually once a year I do a big refresh. And that's probably, I would say, to average it out, maybe like 40 hours over the course of a year, maybe. I would say, just because I'm refreshing about half the course in video content every year. And the reason is, it's a course, this course in particular, It's on how to use Facebook ads to promote your music on Spotify and other streaming services. So Facebook ads changes constantly. Spotify changes constantly. So on one hand, it's annoying, but on the other hand, for YouTube content, it's great because I can make the same video like every 3 months, and there's going to be something new for people to learn because Facebook ads is such an ever-evolving landscape.
So people hear those numbers, Andrew, and they think that's crazy. That's great money. That's you're doing really well for yourself, which all of those things are true. Do you believe there is more to this? It's more said about the niche or space that you are in, being in music promotion, or do you believe that, you know, my cousin has a very popular YouTube channel on knitting and crafting and things like that, and I've often thought if she did a course, she could make that kind of money, if not more. Yeah. Do you believe if you have an audience, because now we're going to get into the topic that you talked to me about off air, about you believe in your heart that people can make like $1 per subscriber, like you don't have to have this big number of subscribers to make a lot of money, because right now, yeah, you're telling me that with under 60,000 subscribers on YouTube, you're using YouTube and the audience you've built there to make way, way more than what people with even 1 million subscribers make. So just digest that for a minute and break that down.
Yeah. So honestly, I think my niche, I don't think there's anything that caused me to be able to do well in it that wouldn't work for another niche. In fact, if anything, I think it may have made it harder.
Agreed.
To do well, because like music artists, generally not known for having the most amount of money. So I price everything accordingly for that. Like my course I sell for $97. I know people who sell the equivalent course, and it's a pretty, the nice thing about my niche is it's not super competitive with what I do. And I would think that whatever you're selling, like if you're the only person or one of like 5 people in the world who can teach someone how to do something, that's probably going to be like your gold mine. But there's someone else selling a competitive course that charges $1,000, right? And so I try to price my things accordingly. Like I think of what I would want to buy as a consumer, and I think about, in some ways I want to raise prices because I see the labels or the people who have a ton of money doing well, that like they could afford to drop $500 on a course. But I think back to who I was 10 years ago in college working at Starbucks, and $100 to me would have been a lot of money. So that's kind of how I think about it. I kind of try to balance it between the indie artist and the bigger clients. So I think if anything, if someone's in a different niche, there's probably a lot of cases where they can be a lot more successful, especially if it's like a business related niche. Like you can charge a lot more in a business niche than you could ever charge in a music niche, or anything where the, you know, people are quote unquote starving artists, you know.
Two questions here. I got a lot of questions, but I'm going to ask you a couple here because I think this is interesting to me. When it comes to the courses that you're selling from your YouTube channel, how long is the course? Like what hour mark are you looking at, like for the Spotify Growth Machine course that you're selling from the YouTube channel into the lead page?
Yeah.
How many hours is that course?
I think it's about 4 to 5 hours.
Okay, so 4 to 5 hours of content.
Yeah.
Okay. What else are you making money from? So you got the AdSense, ad revenue, you got the courses. So there's A and B. So what's next? What else are we making money from?
Well, at some point after the courses, people were saying, "Hey, I'm having trouble with this. Can you hop in a Zoom call with me?" And then I just kind of ignored that stuff at first. And then they were like, "I'll give you money." And I was like, You'll pay me to talk to me?" Like that was such a weird concept to me. So I did it. Initially, I opened it at $60 an hour, just because that felt reasonable. And then like a couple of people bought it, and then I was just like sold out. And then like at first it was super awkward. I was like kind of afraid to hop in a call with a stranger who just paid to talk to me. Like I had no idea what I was doing. But after a couple of calls, you get used to it. And then I raised my price because I was sold out. So I was like supply and demand, right? Like I can't do 1 million of these. So raised it to 87 and then 97 and then 107 again, the 7th thing. And then now it's at 117. And I'm kind of always debating raising it higher, because I've had people tell me like, "Oh, you should make it like 200. People will pay it." And again, I come back to the indie artists who working at Starbucks through college. I'm like, but they can't pay that, you know?
And this is per hour? This is per hour? You're doing a 1 hour call with this person?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah. So I do between 15 and 20 of those a week now. And that's something I'm actively reducing because it's again more free time for friends and family. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's I do YouTube consulting and channel audits and things like that. And I do a $50 for a 30-minute call. And it's one of the most how do I put this? It's one of the most beneficial things that I do, I think, because when I can
Yeah.
see the help and the difference that I can make in someone by getting on a call with them, whether it be someone in the United States or someone overseas, and we can like get them to a point where a light bulb goes off. That is powerful, and I love that, and I'm able to make some money from it, and they're able to get help from it as well. So that's awesome. Now, are there any other kind of standalone products that you offer that are digital that don't require your time, kind of like the courses, or is that about it?
In terms of things that don't require my time, I have the courses. I have a lyric video service that is done like someone else fulfills it. So that for me, that's zero time. I just have to pay the person their portion to actually deliver the video. And I do have years ago, before I was doing the music marketing content, my website was for like music production software. So contact libraries and preset packs and audio sample packs and all that for music producers to use in their songs. And so I get a little bit of sales from that, but in terms of like digital products, that's it. The next thing is my ad agency, which came like 3 months ago, but that's definitely not a hands-off thing. That's a very hands-on thing.
Yeah, and just the ad agency is you just kind of helping artists by running ads to get them more views and downloads and listens, right?
Exactly. So people were like, you gave us the course to teach us how to do it ourselves. For us that needed one-on-one help, you have your consulting, but like, I don't want to do this at all, Andrew. I want you to do it for me. And I have been doing that for the last like entire 3 years, just kind of, I never had a formal product for it. It's like someone would hop in a Zoom call and then they would just ask me like, can I just hire you to do this for me? And then on a case-by-case basis, I've been doing it for years. But then 3 months ago, I started like an actual ad agency with like employees and all that to be able to take on a lot more clients. Because I would only take on like 5 to 10 ad agency clients a month when it was just me.
Mm-hmm.
And I had hundreds of people that have asked over the years. So I was like, let's launch something that can actually handle hundreds and hundreds of artists and songs and labels and stuff like that. And so that's what we launched a few months ago.
Love that. I love that. Back to the YouTube side of things for a bit. What is something you wish you would have known sooner? Like looking back at your YouTube channel now, and how you've grown the channel, because obviously you do have all of these kind of irons in the fire, as we say here in the South, with the courses and all the stuff, the ways you're making money, but you're still also trying to grow the audience, right, on YouTube, because that's at the end of the day, that's kind of what's funneling back into all of these monetary things, the way that you're making money. So what is something you wish you would have known sooner about growing a YouTube channel?
I wish that I hired someone sooner. So I had hired someone to repurpose short form content or repurpose long form content into short form about a year ago. And then my brother-in-law a couple months ago started helping me out with editing videos, and that's been awesome. And then I hired a half-time assistant like a month ago, and that has been amazing. Like I wish I did that a year ago, maybe even 2 years ago, just because of it. It frees me up to, I don't want to call them like menial tasks because they're important and they're not anyone can do them, but there's so many things that suck up a lot of your time that you don't like doing that someone else will gladly do for a reasonable pay, right?
Yes.
And so I hired someone from my community. Like I sent out an email, I had a job listing, and I interviewed several people on the phone and Zoom calls, and I picked someone that I felt like was a great fit, and it's been amazing. It's only like a month in, but I wish I did that a year and a half ago. In terms of content, I would say I wish I knew that the importance of thumbnails earlier, because like I wasn't very good at thumbnails until like the year 2000. Like my first 10 years of YouTube were bad quality video, bad quality thumbnails, no thought into titles. And I wish I just figured that out sooner.
I love that. Those are some really good pointers. Now, as far as the menial tasks that that person takes off of you in regards to the YouTube channel specifically, what are some of those things that you might could share that people might could say, oh,
Yeah.
I could offload that.
Well, one is email. So replying to emails that I don't like, I wouldn't have to answer. So someone's asking about a product or someone's asking like what I have to offer to help them, answering those emails. Scheduling all my social media content, which is a big one because that I have all this content that's being created and it just hasn't been getting posted. Turning my podcast episodes into blog posts on my blog. And what we're working on next is I just blanked for a sec. Oh, finding new guests for my podcast, because that's always been something that just happens randomly. But finding new people to like consistently come on the podcast, and also helping me find sponsors for my podcast as well, and a myriad of other things like customer support, interacting with people in the community, randomly doing other stuff for me, like making documents or whatever. You know.
Yeah, I love that. I think it always makes me nervous because nobody can do it like you, right? You know, no matter what the task may be. And the fear of, you know, I have someone who helps me with some editing and some podcast back end stuff, getting guests for the show, things like that, show notes, simple things. Yeah. But it always scared me, the initial time investment, because it's not like you bring someone in and they just go to work, right? Like you've got to invest hours and hours into that human or that person and say, hey, here's what I want you to do. Here's how I want you to do it. Here are the tools that I want you to use. And there's going to be questions and back and forth. And initially it's going to take time, and it did take time. But when you get on the other end of that, that's when you see the results from it, and it just really flowers, and it's amazing. So
for sure. And that's why for me, it was so important to hire someone from my community, because it meant that I wouldn't have to teach them everything. Like they know the audience because they are the audience. And so they understand when people reach out asking for something, like they know because they are that person, you know.
Interesting.
And so I didn't go to like a virtual assistant agency or freelancing website and find some stranger in another country, which would have been way cheaper. I did find someone in the States that was in my audience and were paid what I thought was a pretty good rate. And I think that's made a huge difference in the starting kind of like the starting pain. Like I feel like if I hired a virtual assistant from like the Philippines or India, which I actually do have a virtual assistant from the Philippines that does other stuff for me. But and she's great, but there are a lot of things that I wouldn't want to have her do because it would take a lot of training to get her to do it, right? Because she's not in my audience. So
absolutely,
it's a huge win having people to help you. Like it's like a huge competitive advantage. If someone else is doing everything themselves and you have a team of 5 people helping you, you're going to win like every time.
Absolutely. Every single time. I could not agree more. Andrew, you have been an amazing guest. You've got an amazing YouTube channel, which has allowed you to grow an amazing business. And I'm so thankful that you were willing to come on the podcast this week. Can you let people know listening to this where they can get in touch with you?
Yeah. If you just go on YouTube and type in Andrew Southworth, you'll find me. My website is Genera Studios, GENERA studios.com. If you're interested in music marketing courses or consulting or my various products, my ad agency, my other software products that I've launched. And find me on social media or Twitter. That's where Dusty found me.
Absolutely. That's exactly right. That is Andrew Southworth over on YouTube. Everything kind of stems from there. And I will have those links in the show notes as always. Andrew, thanks again. And we'll talk to you next time.
Yeah, thanks, man. Glad to be here.